As snow begins to fall, herds of wild boars venture out to forage, desperate to survive the harsh winter. It's at this moment they turn more ferocious than ever, ravaging crops and tearing up the land of local farmers. Hunters immediately set out, determined to halt their destruction. Coming up next are breathtaking pursuit scenes and gripping ambushes that will keep you glued to the screen. Join us to watch and pick the most unforgettable hunt. Early in the morning, John's hunting team swiftly gathered and drove their familiar vehicle up to the dense hillsides of Tajikistan. Upon arrival, the team quickly spread out to track down the wild boars. Within 5 minutes, through binoculars, a marksman spotted a herd of boars weaving through the thick bushes. Without hesitation, he locked onto the largest, fattest one in the group and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, and the boar collapsed, tumbling down the hillside by momentum. The first precise shot echoed, signaling the start of the battle. Continuing the search for other targets, he strained his eyes to scan the opposite hillside. A lone wild boar trudged into view. Seizing the moment before it could disappear from sight, a gunshot rang out. The beast swiftly collapsed onto the dry grass. A precise shot, eliminating yet another potential threat. At another position, through binoculars, a marksman intently tracked every movement on the opposite hillside. There was a wild boar nearly blending into the dry branches. Choosing the optimal position and angle, he pulled the trigger. With just a single shot, the boar, unaware of what hit it, lay still among the dry bushes. Another threat was swiftly neutralized, restoring peace to yet another patch of land. At the same time, in the frigid, snow-covered mountains, another team of hunters had taken up positions surrounding the area. Leon and his teammates were on a trail, tracking signs of the wild boars. Suddenly, in the distance, the silhouettes of boars emerged, heading back to their lair. Two marksmen immediately took position, raising their rifles and waiting for the herd to appear. In less than a minute, the lead boar came into view, and a barrage of gunfire echoed through the forest. The lead boar collapsed onto the snow, while the rest scattered in panic. Determined not to let them escape, the hunters swiftly pursued, taking down a few more before the others vanished completely. A perfect ambush was unfolding at the edge of the forest. Through binoculars, the marksman was intently scanning when a wild boar suddenly darted across. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger. The first shot struck the hind leg, instantly halting the beast. Despite its desperate attempt to flee, a rapid barrage of follow-up shots swiftly ended any hope of escape. At another position, through his scope, Leon spotted yet another wild boar hiding in the dense bushes on the opposite hillside. Without delay, a gunshot rang out, putting an end to the beast's final attempt to conceal itself. The threat was handled swiftly and precisely, leaving no room for error. The battleground in today's journey plays out like a vivid reel of film, where every passing moment is stretched tight like a drawn string. Bold ambushes, breath-stealing confrontations. Everything is a fight to reclaim the crops and restore peace for the farmers. Do these marksmen have the courage and precision to take down the beast before it causes more destruction? Let's find out. The most gripping moments lie just ahead. Right from the very first moments, we witness a swift and precise takedown. This is the hunt of Kwame, a skilled hunter from Kenya. At just 6 a.m., the team was already in position at their designated ambush spot. While tension hung in the air, a rustle came from the bushes ahead. A wild boar cautiously emerged, sniffing around. Without a moment's hesitation, Kwame pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the forest. The beast dropped instantly, never getting the chance to flee. A calm, calculated ambush, executed down to the very second Kwame's two. Not far from Savo, Themba pulled off an equally impressive ambush. He and his team rode in on an off-road vehicle, heading straight for the pre-designated location. Upon arrival, they quickly concealed themselves behind a rocky outcrop, carefully watching the opposite hillside. Eventually, the silhouette of a wild boar emerged. It had started foraging, already tearing through the slope on the far side. That's when the team's best marksman locked onto the target. A cold, precise shot rang out. The boar collapsed instantly. Another threat neutralized before it could even reach the fields. Have you ever hunted wild boars on sparse hillsides, where the open view gives you, but a single mistake means losing the trail? Victor, a seasoned hunter from Poland, moved silently across the slope, binoculars in hand, heading to a pre-marked ambush point. Not a sound. He scanned every movement in the underbrush, because the wild boars of Bialowieza are smart, alert, and unforgiving. Then suddenly, a shadow burst out in front of him. It was the one. Victor didn't flinch. He dropped into position instantly. Each bullet trailed the boar's sprint, closing the distance with chilling precision. A cold, calculated takedown, timed to the rhythm of a steady breath. Victor's composure is something to admire, calm and razor sharp, even in the split-second moment that decides everything. Now to another silent pursuit, unfolding across the grassy field bordering the Sierra Morena forest. Javier had led his team to surround the field from early morning. Their hunting dogs were already tracking the faintest traces left behind by the beasts. Before long, a signal bark rang out, revealing the prey's position. His teammate immediately took stance, eyes sharp, locked on the bushes ahead. Suddenly, a wild boar burst out. He pulled the trigger. A move with no hesitation, calm, clean, and precise. Under the fading light of dusk in the Hordo-Bagi region, the ambush on the rice field was reaching its most intense moment. Arthur and his team had sealed off the entire field, leaving no gaps for the beast to escape. Frantic barking erupted near one of the checkpoints. A hunter swiftly turned, eyes scanning every rustling corn stalk. And then it appeared. A massive wild boar burst forward, charging through the gap in a desperate attempt to flee to the neighboring field. But it didn't get far. Gunfire erupted, cutting off its escape route. The southern United States is becoming the new hotspot for wild boar hunts. These increasingly brazen beasts are devastating crops, livestock pens, and threatening the safety of both people and animals. Hunters have swiftly gathered here to tackle this menace for the locals. The following moments will plunge you into the most vivid and thrilling hunting scenes. Watch until the end to pick out the best hunting. Today's journey begins in Arkansas, where the relentless beasts are mercilessly ravaging crops. At 5 a.m., Nick's hunting team assembled, driving their familiar truck to a forest marked in bold red on the map. Upon arrival, the team, along with their hunting dogs, ventured deep into the woods, executing their assigned tasks. The members swiftly took their positions, eyes sharply scanning every movement. Suddenly, Jack spotted a familiar silhouette moving through his line of sight. He closely tracked the prey's path, and then a decisive gunshot echoed through the forest. The wild boar collapsed instantly, unable to react to the precise shot. The hunt started off quite successfully. In the eastern part of the forest, a team member quickly spotted a group of wild boars foraging right within his line of sight. They were completely unaware of someone lying in wait. He carefully selected his stance and firing angle, locking onto the largest, fattest boar. It collapsed instantly after a single shot, but the others swiftly escaped before another gunshot could ring out. At this moment, the hunting dogs quickly tracked the remaining traces. A few minutes later, their barks echoed loudly, and Nick immediately moved toward the source of the sound. There was a wild boar frantically fleeing from the pursuing dogs. Nick swiftly pulled the trigger, successfully halting the boar's escape, giving the dogs time to surround it. Before it could slip away again, another gunshot rang out, completely ending its chance of escape. A thrilling chase unfolded, putting an end to the threat in the Arkansas forest. At the same time in the South Carolina forest, a precise ambush was unfolding without the slightest error. Another team of hunters had arrived, taking their positions to wait for the target to appear. From his hiding spot, Leon suddenly spotted a wild boar weaving through the bushes in search of food. Ready in position, he swiftly took down the prey with a single shot before it could sense anything. At the outer edge of the forest, another team member successfully took down his target. While tracking the remaining traces of the beasts, a wild boar suddenly burst out from the dense grass. Seizing the moment, a clean and decisive gunshot rang out. A precise finish helped restore peace to the forest here.
Recently, locals in the area had begun to notice the familiar signs of wild boar appearing more frequently along the slopes behind the village. We decided to head up the mountain early, hoping to get a head start before the boars moved further down the slopes. The slopes were steep and slippery, making for difficult travel. But if we could follow their usual paths, our chances of encountering them would be much higher. We parked by a narrow trail at the base of the mountain. Rifles had just been slung over our shoulders, and the group was ready to hike along the steep slope to reach our ambush point. No one expected things to kick off this early. Hank gripped his rifle tightly, cautiously approaching a small mound near the roadside. From its hiding spot, a wild boar suddenly burst out. Without hesitation, a sharp, decisive gunshot rang out. Just seconds later, the first target had collapsed. The hunt hadn't even officially begun, but the boars had already offered themselves up to the barrel. It took the team about 30 minutes to reach the ambush site we had scouted earlier. The top of the slope was clear, but below, dense brush covered the foothills, and that was our target area, the area I couldn't take my eyes off. A wild boar dodged Eric's shot and darted into the bushes. A few seconds later, it appeared on the other side, exactly as predicted. I held my breath, my finger tightening on the trigger. A deafening explosion tore through the air. The target had no chance of escape. Eric shifted his line of sight and quickly spotted a herd of wild boars moving up the slope. Without hesitation, he raised his rifle, waited for the perfect moment as one of the boars entered a clearing and fired. A single shot hit. One boar rolled down the hill, while the rest immediately bolted in panic. Still, we had secured the prize we came for. At a higher ambush point, Hank also spotted a boar just as it emerged from a dense thicket. He didn't hesitate for even a second. A direct shot from the front brought the wild boar down instantly, and it tumbled into the green brush nearby. In mountainous slope areas like this, wild boars often choose paths covered with thick vegetation to move and forage. So, if you catch the wind direction and set up at the right spot, the chances of a successful ambush are quite high. Only were there hunters positioned above, there was also someone stationed down in the valley. Travis received a report from the scout team. A wild boar had been wounded and was trying to hide in the bushes. Not giving a chance to escape, Travis immediately moved in on the target. The boar no longer had the strength to fight back, so all Travis had to do was fire a decisive shot to finish it off completely. During our hunts along the mountainside, we usually retreat early from the peak and switch to ambushing in nearby areas. I was assigned to hold position at the foot of the mountain, a narrow trail between the low valley and the slope, which also happens to be a common path for wildlife movement. Sure enough, not long after, rustling came from the nearby brush and a dark figure appeared. I reacted quickly, adjusted my aim, and pulled the trigger. A single clean and precise shot. The boar collapsed by the roadside, struggled briefly, then lay still.
Ya hablo, Mimi, quería jugar menos, mira alguna que dio piña.
Wild boars, vicious beasts with razor-sharp tusks, have torn through Texas farmland, ripping up fields and destroying crops, causing thousands of dollars in damage in just a single night. Farmers are at their wits' end. Traps, poison, fences, nothing works. With no other choice, they've called on us hunters willing to face danger head-on. How will this hunt for these relentless destroyers unfold? The hoof prints, the trampled grass, evidence left behind by these monstrous beasts. They fear nothing, brazenly tearing through everything in their path. We followed the trail they left behind and sank into the cold darkness, silently waiting for the moment the prey would appear. Hidden in the night, the moonlight lit up the field, giving us clearer visibility. Look, there they are, foraging in the dark, completely unbothered, showing not a hint of fear. Rage surged inside me. I steadied my rifle, fixed my aim on the biggest one, and pulled the trigger. Though hit, it mustered its last strength to flee into the nearby brush. I immediately brought the hunting dog to track its trail, pushing through dense undergrowth. We ventured deeper in and finally spotted it collapsed on the ground. Continuing through the pitch-black night in search of wild boar tracks, I suddenly heard a faint rustling sound coming from the bushes ahead. Without hesitation, I raised my infrared binoculars, tearing through the ink-like darkness. The shape of the target came into sharp focus as it moved. I took careful aim and squeezed the trigger. Bam! The shot rang out, and at that exact moment, the boar collapsed to the ground, unable to make a run for it. The night grew darker, and the cold cut deeper, but this was exactly when the wild boars began their search for food. They came in larger numbers, moving in herds through the thick darkness. We quickly closed in, aiming to take down as many of these beasts as possible. I locked onto one target's movement and pulled the trigger. A clean, precise shot, it went down instantly. But the others used the chaos to escape into the night. Next time, I won't let them get away so easily. Upon receiving a signal from our teammates, we immediately moved toward the fields, where a herd of wild boars was wreaking havoc. This time, it was Jay who took down the boars with pinpoint accuracy. From those hiding deep in the brush to the ones skirting the field's edge, any that were spotted didn't stand a chance of escaping. The number of boars in the area was overwhelming. They'd even broken into livestock pens to cause destruction. We managed to take down a fair number after several hours of tracking and shooting, but it was still nothing compared to the numbers we were warned about. The entire team had to reposition quickly. This hunt was far from over. Through the thermal scope, I spotted the silhouette of a large, black wild boar moving along the forest edge. More and more began to emerge, pouring out in search of food. From over 100 meters away, I adjusted my position and shooting stance, carefully choosing the optimal angle. I locked onto the biggest one. The boar dropped on the spot. The rest scattered in panic, fleeing deep into the forest. We continued sweeping the area, tracking down the ones that got away. Following their trail deeper into the woods, we suddenly spotted a lone wild boar leisurely moving across the grass. I quickly locked onto the target perfect,